Hi, I'm Ryan Sloan with the Gear Cage. Let's dive right into it today and compare the Behringer Wing and the X32 on the surface. First, the X32 has 32 Midas designed preamps on board, along with 16 assignable XLR outputs. You can also buy the X32 Compact for tighter spaces at a slightly lower price point that features 16 Midas designed preamps and 8 XLR outputs. The Wing, on the other hand, only has 8 XLR inputs, but does feature actual Midas Pro Series preamps like you'd find in the M32. So, on the surface, the Wing is going to sound better using those 8 microphone preamps than the X32 will. And we'll show you the exact specifications a little bit later on those. Now, more importantly, why did Behringer put fewer XLR inputs on the mixer? I think in doing their research, they probably realized that a vast majority of people were buying Behringer and Midas digital snakes to integrate the consoles, and that left a lot of unused inputs and outputs on the console itself. So for those that still want all the hands-on fader control, the Wing really makes a lot of sense if you're going to be running most of your inputs and outputs from the stage. Now, speaking of hands-on fader control, the X32 and Wing both feature about the same number of 100mm faders. The X32 has 25 and the Wing has 24. Not a big deal there really. They are both motorized, which has really become a standard required feature these last few years on digital consoles. But at the time, at the price point, the Behringer X32 series really did kind of pioneer that feature. Now, staying on the subject of control, one of the big deviations lies in the interface itself. The X32 has an on-screen display that's very knob and button driven. The Wing embraces modern touchscreen technology and will let you control the mixer via touch or using knobs if you're more comfortable with that method. In fact, it's really more of a hybrid method of using the knobs and the touchscreen I found in my research so far. But this is a huge improvement in workflow in my opinion. Now, let's talk about another big topic for people, and that is channel capacity. This might be the number one thing people ask about. The Wing absolutely owns the X32 and M32 series by giving you access to 48 stereo input channels. So let's say that again, 48 stereo input channels. This is kind of massive when you think about it, because the X32's stereo inputs will actually consume 2 channels each. So you have channels 1 and 2 that you can make a stereo pair. Now on the Wing, you can actually make, inputs 1 and 2 their own 1-channel input in stereo. So if you think about that, some things that would be run in stereo like drum overheads, keyboards, tape decks, CD decks, computer inputs, stereo guitar rigs, audience microphones, hanging microphones, and anything else that could be stereo, you could easily just change 16 to 20 channels and move that to 8 to 10 on the Wing. So you're conserving a lot more channel space. So that's absolutely huge and should drive down the overall channel count needs of most end users. Next, let's talk about DSP. DSP stands for Digital Signal Processing. So think of your effects in this case. The great thing about DSP is that it's always getting better and cheaper as time goes on. And the Wing takes full advantage of this over the X32 by giving you massive improvements as well. We're actually talking about 5 times as much DSP as an X32. Mind-boggling. The M32 does have the same DSP processing as the X32 as well, if you're wondering. Now, another common question is, what about DAW control? So recording software control like Pro Tools, Ableton, Logic, all of those. The X32 does have some limited capabilities as a DAW controller. It's completely useful using the Mackie-Huey protocol. The Wing has full DAW control, I would call it, because it has 3 separate MIDI banks over the USB connection built into it. Now, another huge differentiation out there is the recording capabilities. This is another area where the Wing will excel over the X32. The Wing features a built-in 48 by 48 channel USB 2.0 recording interface. Once the Dante card is released, you'll have access to 64 channels on a Dante network. What's not yet clear is if the console will be able to address all those channels, but as we spoke about before, because the Wing can take stereo inputs, you could conceivably pull 96 channels onto the board if every input was a stereo input. So I suspect you'll be able to pull more inputs in from the Dante sources as well as the Stagebox sources. Now, the Dante card isn't available yet, but should be available, as soon as the recording of this video hits the YouTube channel or shortly thereafter, according to Behringer. Now, in terms of recording, you can record a dry mix or post effects into your recording software. Now, let's talk about Ultranet. So the X32 pioneered an amazing built-in personal monitoring system called Ultranet. You could use that with the Behringer PowerPlay system, and a lot of people have asked if they can use that on the Wing. The short answer, I guess, is yes and no. The Wing does not have an Ultranet connection directly, but you can use the existing Ultranet port on the stage boxes, so you will still be able to use an existing PowerPlay system. Behringer is also looking to add a converter box from their new Stage Connect to Ultranet in the near future, so look for that as well. Now, how many channels can I hook in via a snake? So on the AES-50 network, you can do 48 channels in and out per port. The X32 has 2 AES-50 ports, which means you'll have access to 96 by 96 channels on that network. But the Wing has 3 AES-50 ports, meaning you'll have access to a whopping 144 channels in and out on the network. With an option card, you can even pull in an additional 64 inputs. So that puts us right there at over 200 channels available on the network to a Wing console. Mind-boggling amounts of channels. I know I've never really used more than 30 or 40 in anything that I've done, so just a huge amount of channel headroom there. Now, we're talking about a live sound mixer, so we can't talk about that without talking about sound quality. So how does it sound? So we've talked about a ton of general features. The Wing was generally better, but ultimately, how does it sound? Well, the good news is that it's going to sound better, of course. There are a few reasons for this. 1, the internal digital processing on the plugins is just better. Since Music Tribe Behringer owns TC Electronic, they can put those amazing algorithms right in the box. So that's a great place to start. I found the built-in effects to sound instantly better. They were absolutely on par with computer-based plugins even. So, get that high-quality computer-based sound without having the computer hooked up to it or running something like a Waves SoundGrid network or even Dante streaming to a computer and back with multi-rack from Waves. That keeps things more simple. It means you need less gear to get a great sound on the console. Next, the analog and digital converters are better. Let's compare the X32, the M32, and the Wing to get an idea of the converter chip quality. The analog to digital converter on the X32 and M32 give you 109 dB of dynamic range. On the Wing, it's 114 dB. This is more massive than it sounds. On the output of the converter, called the digital to analog side, you also get 108 dB on the X32 and a staggering 120 dB on the Wing and M32. So that just tells you how the M32 can deviate and why it does sound better on the output side. The analog dynamic range on the Wing is 111 dB versus 106 dB on the X32 and the M32. So let's summarize the consoles and all of this. On inputs and outputs, the Wing reigns supreme here with so much I/O that you have access to and can actually use at one time. We're talking over 200 inputs with various sources from the Wing, and being able to access 96 channels through the 48 stereo inputs. This is dramatically more than the 96 accessible and the 40 total channels available on the X32 and M32 platform. The next thing is digital signal processing. The Wing has 5 times the processing power of the X32 and M32. That lets you run inserts on every channel and access better plugins to begin with. This is another huge win for the Wing. Next, let's talk about recording again. You can record 48 by 48 channels with the included USB card, or 64 by 64 with the future Dante card expansion. This is much better than the 32 channels you have on the X32 and the M32. So another big win here for the Wing. Especially true if you're running a large live stream, which I know a lot of churches or schools, bands are doing due to the pandemic. The next thing to talk about here is sound quality. And let's be honest here, all 3 boards sound amazing, but the Wing has the best sound quality in the category as a whole. And beyond even the Behringer and Midas offerings, as we compare similar offerings from Allen and Heath and Yamaha, it just really still stands out. Both the X32 and M32, as well as the Wing, they all sound fantastic. But the Wing does have an edge, as we talked about in the specifications section. So ultimately, where does that leave us? If you are buying a console today and can afford it, I think the Wing makes the most sense going forward. As they develop the platform, it's going to get better and better with future software updates, just like the X32 and M32 have. Now, if budget is a primary concern right now, you can still have a great experience with the X32 series. I definitely want to make sure we're not trashing that line. It kind of revolutionized live digital mixers out there. So it's still a very valid platform, and that just speaks to how well they designed it. The Wing is, however, not perfect. I want to make that clear. I'm going to give one demerit to it in terms of the workflow. I really like how easy channel assignments are on the X32 and the M32. It is a little different on the Wing with what they call sources. It takes a little getting used to. Ultimately, it is more flexible. And, is it enough to deter me from using the Wing? Definitely not. In fact, I just put my X32 compact that I've had for years, that's at the beginning of this video, on Reverb and sold it, because I think the Wing is going to be a great replacement with little to no downside. Let me know if you have any other questions in the comments. Again, my name is Ryan Sloan with the Gear Cage, and thanks so much for watching.